What's up, everybody? It's your boy AT2. Now, Roland Martin was able to snag the first interview with Colin Allred after this whole mediocre comment that Talarico made. Now, for those of you who don't know, Talarico was accused of calling Colin Allred a mediocre black man. This is from a content creator who's heavily involved in Texas politics. And everybody was making this big deal calling her a liar. Her name is Morgan, by the way, calling Morgan a liar. She made this up. She dropped the receipts, and everybody was still calling her a liar. Well, later on, Talarico confirmed he did have that conversation, but he was talking about Colin Allred's campaign and not calling him mediocre as a black man. Either way, Talarico was a liar. But let's go ahead and get into this interview. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's get to it, y'all. All right, here we go.
Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Well, boy, things got a little funky a couple of days ago when a sister went on first of all, when someone went on social media claiming that Talarico, in a private conversation, called former Congressman Colin Allred, who ran last year for the United States Senate against Ted Cruz, a mediocre black man. That got social media abuzz, and then Colin Allred dropped this video on social media.
Morning, everybody. It's cold out here, and I got some steam coming off my head because I'm, just finished my workout. Got some steam coming out of my ears too. I understand that James Talarico had the temerity and the audacity to say to a black woman that he had signed up to run against a mediocre black man, meaning me, not a formidable, intelligent black woman, meaning Jasmine Crockett. Let me just break this down into a few segments here. First of all, let me just give you some free advice, James. If you want to compliment black women, just do it. Just do it. Don't do it while also tearing down a black man. Okay? We've seen that play before. We're sick and tired of it. We're tired of folks using praise for black women to mask criticism for black men. That's not good for our community. It's not good. It doesn't work, and we know what you're doing. Okay? So if next time you want to praise a black woman, just do that. Leave black men out of it. Just leave a lot of things out of it. Second of all, did you ever have a coach or somebody, a leader in your life tell you that when you make an accusation, you often have a bit of confession in it? Maybe you use the word mediocre because there was something creeping into your mind about yourself. Because I know you're not talking about somebody who's been better at 3 things than you've ever been at 1. You are not saving religion for the Democratic Party or the left. We already had Senator Reverend Dr. Raphael Warnock for that. We don't need you. You're not saying anything unique. You're just saying it looking like you do.
Ooh.
Okay?
We discussed this video before, but I never broke that part down when he said, you're just saying the things looking like you do. Like, oh, because it's a white man, we recognize him as, this Christian, this good guy, where Raphael Warnock is actually a pastor, and he still teaches on Sundays. That's the crazy part. Like, he still is heavily involved in his church, but yet they don't have this image of Raphael Warnock as like this church going Christian man. But Talarico, they're framing him as this Christian. Let me just put it out there. It's because they don't see God in black people. They still think that God is this white man, or Jesus with this white man with long, woolly, long hair, with curls and stuff like that. Even though they said in the Bible, his hair was like wool. When they find out that Jesus is not white, trust me, they'll change to another religion, but let's keep going.
And third of all, let me just say to all the young black men out there, all the young men come from tough background, struggle growing up, who maybe think that someday you want to put yourself forward as a leader in your community. It's going to have haters like this are going to show up, okay? And you're going to feel like you have to be twice as good and jump twice as high and talk twice as well, but you don't have to. You can walk out there with your shoulders back and your head held up high, knowing who you are and the value that you bring, and understanding that this comes with the territory and that there's going to be folks like this. And when we see them, we should say thank you. Thank you for taking off the mask. Thank you for telling us who you really are and what you really think. And goodbye. Okay?
And another point to this is that the other day, not even realizing how deep this actually was, because again, what he was just saying is that no matter, for me, for example, they say, oh, you talk white, I'm articulate and stuff like that. So I would be perceived as, oh, I'm doing the right thing compared to somebody who talks with more slang or ebonics or whatnot. Like they looked at as lower class, and I would be looked at as more higher class, right? But at the end of the day, me doing the right thing and sounding smart or articulate, still they look at me like a ninja. You know what I want to say.
Because we're on our way and we don't need you to come with us and we don't need your help to get there. So with that being said, go vote for Jasmine Crockett. This man should not be our nominee for the United States Senate. I wasn't going to get involved in this race, but listen, don't come for me unless I send for you. Okay, James? And keep my name out of your mouth while you're at it.
And again, it was a podcaster who said that Talarico told her this in a private conversation. This is a statement released by the Talarico campaign. This is a mischaracterization of a private conversation. In my praise of Congresswoman Crockett, I described Congressman Allred's method of campaigning as mediocre. But his life and service are not. I would never attack him on the basis of race. As a black man in America, Congressman Allred has had to work twice as hard to get where he is. I understand how my critique of the congressman's campaign could be interpreted given this country's painful legacy of racism, and I care deeply about the impact my words have on others. I've always said that despite our disagreements, I deeply respect Congressman Allred. We are all on the same team. All right, Congressman Allred joins us right now.
Yeah, right.
And first of all, he's a former congressman who's now running to get back to Congress. And so that's happening as we speak as well. So he's also on the ballot come March 3rd. Congressman, can I ask a question? First of all, when all this happened, did Talarico reach out to you, call you before or after you released your video?
Hey, Roland, good to see you. No, he did not. And I think that was one thing I was waiting to hear when all this was going around was a denial, but also, maybe an explanation. I have not gotten anything along those lines.
So a very interesting watch.
The fact that he still has not called him, very telling. Like,
a lot of the social media discourse, because even before this, you've had a lot of white progressives who've been very critical of Crockett, saying she shouldn't have run, that she's stopping Texas from having the best shot at winning this seat. And I've seen all sorts of stuff, and I've been like, first of all, and I've been blasted folks saying, first of all, most y'all people ain't even from Texas. Y'all know jack about the state. Right. You know how many counties in the state. You know nothing about the last Democrat to win. Also, you know nothing about the changing demographics. So really shut the hell up. But the reality is race has been back and forth in this whole deal. And now you have this here. And so what do you make of that statement where he admits using the word mediocre, but that was describing your campaign and not you personally?
Well, listen, I believe the young woman who was part of the conversation, she was a supporter of his. She had nothing to gain and everything to lose. What was shocking to her would not have been criticism of my campaign. She was not a supporter of mine. She supported him against me. What was shocking to her was the formulation of calling me a mediocre black man. That's what upset her. And I believe her. And she had contemporaneous reports. And I think that it's important that when language like that is used, that it's called out, that we make sure that there's accountability, that I'm not just going to sit there and allow people to not only impugn me. It's fine if you want to criticize me, but when you use a mediocre black man, now you're making this even more weighty in terms of what you're saying. And I think that there's a lot of young people who are watching this, and I meant what I said in the video.
So what's interesting is that they felt like, oh, Colin Allred, it's going to be easy for us to beat him. Like, that's what they think. Like, that's what Talarico's whole point was. Like, damn, Jasmine Crockett jumped in. Now I'm not going to win. But if it was Colin Allred, who is perceived to be the mediocre black man, it would have been easy for me. And again, I like that he pointed out Morgan was a supporter originally of James Talarico. Like she was heavily involved with his team and stuff like that. There was a few things like the online criticism of Jasmine Crockett, James Carville, that old decrepit Democratic cicada. I don't even know why they keep asking him being a part of Talarico's team. And then just a few other things. And then you drop this with the whole mediocre black man thing. Yeah, she changed who she supported, and now she's supporting Jasmine Crockett.
Maybe someday see themselves as one to run for office, maybe see themselves as one to be a leader in some capacity, and may feel like that even if they've done a huge number of things and had an incredibly successful career, that they'll just be diminished and dismissed in this way. And I don't think that's acceptable.
You said in the video that you had no intentions of endorsing anybody in this campaign, but after this, you absolutely did. And so, what was that process for you?
Well, listen, I'm moving on, right, Roland? I got my own race, and I was going to try and support whoever was the nominee coming out of it. And I'm friends with Jasmine. That's no secret. I've defended her during this process because I think that I just like you, I've been incredibly frustrated by the coverage of her by people in coastal states having these incredibly strong opinions of what's going to work in Texas, not knowing anything about what our actual struggle is when it comes to elections, which is oftentimes, yes, running against Republicans, but also running against cynicism and a deep feeling of despair that nothing is going to change, particularly in our minority communities. And knowing, as I do, because I go and talk to ordinary people and hearing from them how they're happy to see me, they appreciate me and my service. And then they'll also often say, and I really appreciate that, Jasmine, and so I know that, and I have that on the ground experience that these folks don't have. And so, I wasn't planning on, engaging in this race actively, but I think that when you are someone who feels comfortable enough saying something like that, then now you've pushed me over the edge.
This obviously, they had a debate with Texas AFL-CIO and pretty much agreed back and forth. And so this really is a contrast in styles. Look, you've run statewide. You ran against Senator Ted Cruz last year. You ran in the primary, and then you ran the general. And so what do you make of the likes of James Carville and these other people who are weighing in who say, oh, no, the only way you can have a candidate win in Texas, they've got to be white. They've got to be a moderate. They've got to appeal to the suburban voters. And I had somebody on social media who did that. And I literally went back and I pulled the data and I went like way back, and I went back to 1988, and I actually ran down all of the people who ran for United States Senate. And this was not the complete list. But when I ran this down, I'm going to go to in a second. I mean, listen, you look at this list. There have been white men who run, white women who run, Latino, Latina, African-American. You've had different people. Really, the two that got closest, Beto O'Rourke, of course, 2.5%. The Cruz, your race, I believe, was like 9-10 points. So this notion that there is a perfect candidate, be it a black woman or be it a Latino or white, I'm just like, guys, there's no such thing. And so that's what drives me crazy as a registered voter in Texas. These people who have no idea what the hell they're talking about in terms of what it takes to win in Texas. The problem.
And I want to point something out too. There's this notion out there that you need to try to get Trump supporters. You need to try to change them and get them to listen. There's a lot of Trump supporters who have regrets about voting for him for a third time. How do you vote for this man for a third time? But anyway, there's a lot of them who have regret. And so you ask them like, hey, if you could go back, would you have changed your vote? And most of them, I would say 8 out of 10 of them will say, I would have just not had voted. Not that, I would have changed my vote and changed it to Kamala or whatnot, right? Or to whoever the Democrat was. I would have not voted. Those people are strong in their convictions and you cannot change them. You need to bring out the base. Just like I think it was like the Houston, some kind of Houston paper or something like that has endorsed Talarico, and they said you need, you don't need anyone who excites the base. You need someone who can go on the other side and talk. Listen, if you don't bring out your base, you will not win. You know how MAGA has been so successful because they bring out their base. Now, a few people might come over, and typically that's what happens. A few people might get frustrated with their party, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to try something else. That's usually what happens, but you always want to turn out your base. That's something that Republicans do correctly. They try to turn out their base and not, oh, let's bring people from the other side in. And what they really mean is that we want to bring either the white people over to our party, or more white people over to our party, or we wanted to accept the racists and just deal with racism just so that we can win. That's what they're really saying.
In Texas, that it's 60% minority, yet 60% of those who vote are white. It is an unregistered, unorganized, non-mobilized state.
That's right. And, listen, our issue in Texas, as you said, is that we are disproportionately young in addition to being a majority minority state, right? So it's a dual factor, right? So we know that young people vote at a lower rate oftentimes, and we also have whole communities where we're seeing much lower turnout, and particularly our urban centers, which are our fastest growing places, are increasingly diverse, and increasingly we know that we need to do a much better job of turning folks out in those centers, right? And so there's no exact formula on how to do this, but I wish that people would quit being so certain about what they know that must be, right? Because I certainly know that, particularly in my career as a voting rights lawyer, but also running for office, that we have an enormous infrastructure deficit in our cities when it comes to turning folks out, but also we need the candidates, and we need to make sure we have appeals that can reach into folks who feel like, listen, I don't want to go through all the hoops of jumping through all the hoops of voting in Texas. I've got a lot going on in my life. This is competing with 3 or 4 things that are more important to my daily life, having to take time out to go vote. And so that's why, to me, I think we do have to do both. We do need to try and persuade, some of the folks who are feeling, let down, or this is not what they wanted in terms of the Trump administration. But in Texas, our challenge is different than it is in a state that's been organized for decades and it's been a competitive presidential campaign coming through. We've not had that. This is not Ohio or Florida, even states that were recently competitive at the presidential level. We've been completely undeveloped. And so the certainty of it is interesting to me, particularly for people who are not in the state, haven't been to the state, or don't have been here recently. You can have an opinion, but the certainty is something that I find to be kind of interesting.
Well, I believe, again, as somebody born and raised in Texas, still registered to vote in Texas, parents there, brothers and sisters there, is that the issue that I see with Democrats in Texas, if there's a defeatist attitude. To your point, listen, Republicans have controlled the state for 30 years. I get a kick out of when I hear Greg Abbott or Dan Patrick start complaining about what Democrats haven't done in Texas. And I'm like, y'all have run the state. What the hell are you talking about? So you can't blame that one on Democrats. You've run the state. And the other thing is that what Democrats have done is they've focused, obviously, and I get it, on your large counties. Harris, where Houston is, look, Blue County, Dallas, Bexar County, San Antonio, Travis County, Austin. Fort Worth is the last large county that's red out of all the major counties. But the issue in Texas is that Democrats have been getting crushed in West Texas, in East Texas. And frankly, what you've seen is the drift of Latinos moving to the right, especially in South Texas. And so what has to happen, and I remember a conversation in 2012 with then Representative Chris Van Hollen, who ran the DCCC. He's now a United States Senator. We were waiting to go on CNN. This was after Obama won in 2012. And I asked him specifically about Georgia and Texas. And he said, oh, red states. I'm like, no, dude, they're not. I said, they simply are unorganized, and you guys haven't invested resources. Well, what happened in 2012? Stacey Abrams, Raphael Warnock, and others, they focused on mobilizing Georgia. That's how Georgia has 2 Democratic United States senators, and how Biden, Harris won the state. That's how you had two folks who ran just statewide on the utility commission who also won as well. Well, what Democrats have not done is they've just said, there's no way we can win Texas. And so if you make no effort to register the 2 million Latinos who are eligible but unregistered, if you make no effort where you have African-American voters in Texas, or where you have the largest concentration of black voters in any state in the country, but when you have black voters in Texas voting anywhere from 48 to 52% or 54%, really what you got to get black turnout in Texas to be 65, 70, 75% to give yourself a shot. That means investing resources, putting people on the ground who are operating 365, 7 days a week.
So I'm going to stop it right here so you guys can watch the whole thing. I'll put the link in the description in the video. But one of the things that the Democrats do horribly is just giving up on these states, and especially like a place like Texas. Texas is a majority state. And so you would think they would invest money in that and try to turn out those voters, but they don't. They simply don't care. This is the DNC's fault. And just like Roland was saying, they don't have the infrastructure. This is why Texas is the way it is. And also, it's a very large state, too. Let's not forget that. It's a very large state. So there's a lot of money and resources that would have to go into Texas, but it can be done. And this notion, again, going back to Talarico, that, oh, you need somebody palatable so the other side will want to vote for them. It's not going to work. It's not. It never works. You want to turn out those disgruntled / people who just don't care or believe in our political process. Like, those are the people that you want to convince, like, hey, I know that you think that things don't change, but hey, I'm here to change things for you. Please give me the opportunity to do that for you. Like, you need to reach out to those people. Like, just like in the presidential election, there was more people who didn't vote than people who did vote. And this is true for all elections, but specifically the last one in 2024. You always want to try to turn out those voters, and especially your base. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about this whole Texas situation. Listen, I'm in California. I got to figure out who the hell our governor is going to be. We got a lot going on in this state. But again, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate y'all for being here, not there, here. Hit that notification bell so you get all the notifications. And don't forget about our meetup on April 10th through the 12th. Can't wait to meet you guys in Vegas. Deuces, everybody. We out.